Vanished on a hunting trip. Years later, his truck was found with another man inside. Sounds like a paranormal activity. Huh? How you say? Paranormal. I'm gonna be in the
12,
patio
in
with you guys.
Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, 42-year-old Clarence Biddle left his home just after 5 a.m. Clarence was a
Be in the
journeyman
shop with you guys,
electrician
you
with
heard?
nearly 2 decades of
You
experience,
guys can see.
mostly working contract jobs at various power plants throughout the region. That Friday morning, he told his wife, Reba
Where they
Biddle,
at?
that he was heading north to the
They
Poconos
chilling?
for a solo hunting weekend, something he had done almost every year since his mid-20s. According to Reba, this was routine for
Lock in,
Clarence.
chat. Lock in.
He preferred early fall, favored solitude, and always took the same vehicle, a silver 1999 Ford F-150. He loaded his gear, locked the backyard shed, and drove off without incident. It would be the last time Clarence Biddle was seen alive. Reba Biddle, 38 at the time, told investigators that her husband planned to return no later than Sunday evening, October 14th. When he failed to appear or call by Monday morning, she contacted local authorities to file a missing person report. She told deputies from the Susquehanna County Sheriff's Office that Clarence had been under considerable stress in recent months due to layoffs at the Montour Power Plant, where he had been working on a temporary contract. The initial police response followed standard procedure for a presumed wilderness disappearance. Clarence had claimed he would be camping near a state-managed game reserve close to Waymart, an area known for its expansive wooded terrain and minimal ranger presence. Search and rescue teams from multiple counties, assisted by volunteer groups, were deployed to check popular trailheads and hunting sites. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Aerial sweeps were conducted over the forest canopy. No sign of Clarence or his vehicle was found. A local forest ranger, Thomas Ely, informed investigators that Clarence's license plate was not logged at the game reserve's main entry point. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The reserve utilized a handwritten gate logbook where hunters were expected to record their vehicle information. Clarence's name or vehicle plate did not appear. Additionally, wildlife monitoring cameras positioned along the perimeter trail systems and fire roads failed to capture any trace of his truck or person. With no sightings, no physical evidence, and no activity on Clarence's credit cards or cell phone, the investigation began to slow. Then, in early November 2012, approximately 3 weeks after Clarence's disappearance, Reba received a letter in the mail. The envelope was postmarked Buffalo, New York, and the note inside read, "I'm gone. I need peace. Don't look for me." It was unsigned, but Reba insisted the handwriting belonged to Clarence. She turned the letter over to the authorities. In December 2012, the disappearance was officially reclassified as a voluntary departure. There were no charges, no suspects, and no further search operations scheduled. Clarence Biddle's missing persons file remained technically open but inactive. In May 2013, 7 months after he was last seen, Clarence's profile was quietly removed from the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, Active Missing Persons Registry. His social security number had shown no activity since the previous fall. None of his known bank accounts, credit lines, or utility records reflected any use or change. His phone remained disconnected. His union membership through the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, lapsed due to non-payment of dues. Effectively, Clarence had disappeared not just physically, but from every known system of identification and commerce. Over time, public interest faded. There were no vigils or media follow-ups. Clarence's story never reached state or national news. Within the small, rural community of Montrose, it remained a curiosity, a quiet man, gone without a trace. Still, with no new information and no body recovered, Clarence Biddle's disappearance settled into cold case territory. From late 2013 through early 2020, there were no reported developments, no new leads, and no further attempts by law enforcement to revisit the case. It would take nearly 8 years and a chance traffic stop over 200 miles away for the story to re-enter public attention. In March 2013, 6 months after Clarence Biddle's disappearance, Reba Biddle left the couple's home in rural Susquehanna County and relocated to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, approximately 40 miles south. The move coincided with a transfer from her clerical position in the Montrose County Clerk's office to a new administrative role at the Luzerne County Housing Authority. Reba sold the house she had shared with Clarence, citing financial reasons, and leased a one-bedroom apartment near the city's south side. Within the same month, she initiated a claim on Clarence's life insurance policy, a $60,000 term life plan payable under a clause allowing disbursement after 180 consecutive days of verified absence. The policy was paid out in full by late April 2013. Though Clarence's legal death had not been established by the courts, the insurer accepted the disappearance classification and documentation provided by law enforcement. Reba used the funds to settle outstanding household debts and reported the remainder as savings in her subsequent tax filings. She did not apply for survivor benefits and did not petition for a formal death certificate. According to interviews with former neighbors on Miller Hill Road, Reba had grown noticeably more withdrawn in the months following Clarence's disappearance. One neighbor recalled that she stopped making eye contact and avoided casual conversation. After moving to Wilkes-Barre, she began using her maiden name, Reba Holtz, in non-official contexts, but never filed for divorce or sought a legal name change. At work, she was described by coworkers as efficient and private. Multiple colleagues stated that she never discussed Clarence in any detail and referred to him only as gone. In 2014, Reba began a personal relationship with Randall Farrow, a former contractor from Luzerne County. Farrow had a minor criminal record consisting of trespassing and misdemeanor property damage charges dating back to 2009, but no felony convictions. He had been unemployed intermittently over the years and was known locally for doing odd jobs under the table. Public records show no business license under his name. Farrow moved into Reba's apartment in early 2015. No marriage license was ever issued, but by 2016 he listed her address as his primary residence on state and federal tax filings. By 2018, Reba had listed Randall as her emergency contact on employment forms and health insurance paperwork. That same year, she initiated a loan refinancing application involving a co-signed personal loan originally held with Clarence in 2009. As part of the refinancing process, the bank requested verification of Clarence's status. In response, Reba submitted a notarized affidavit stating that Clarence had ceased all contact and was presumed deceased due to prolonged absence without explanation. Though she did not attach a death certificate, the documentation met the institution's internal threshold for account closure. Clarence's remaining financial accounts, already dormant, were flagged for permanent closure. His credit profile was marked as inactive in early 2019. By all outward measures, he had been written out of the system. Despite the administrative closure of Clarence's life, one person remained unconvinced, his younger sister, Lisa Biddle. A registered nurse living in Scranton, Lisa had long expressed concern over the nature of her brother's disappearance. In her statement to Pennsylvania State Police in 2020, she said she never believed Clarence would walk away from his life without a word and viewed the letter postmarked from Buffalo as staged or coerced. From 2013 onward, Lisa made periodic inquiries to the sheriff's office but received little in the way of updates. In 2019, frustrated by the lack of movement, Lisa hired a private data tracing firm specializing in dormant vehicle registrations and legacy address tracking. The inquiry focused on locating Clarence's 1999 Ford F-150, which had never been recovered. The firm conducted a multi-state search using VIN databases, impound lot records, and registration systems. The results came back negative. There was no sign of Clarence's truck in Pennsylvania, New York, or surrounding jurisdictions. The report concluded there had been no registration activity tied to the vehicle since late 2012. That changed on May 27, 2020, when a traffic stop in western New York revealed the first concrete clue in nearly 8 years. On the afternoon of May 27th, 2020, New York State troopers conducted a routine traffic stop outside Jamestown, a city in Chautauqua County approximately 100 miles south of the Canadian border. The vehicle, a gray Ford F-150 pickup truck, had been observed traveling eastbound on Interstate 86 with expired Pennsylvania license plates. The driver, a white male estimated to be in his early 50s, was alone. When approached by law enforcement, he failed to produce a driver's license or any form of valid identification. He verbally identified himself as Daniel Marks, but could not provide documentation to support the claim. Due to the lack of identification and inconsistencies in the man's statements, the responding trooper requested a VIN check. The vehicle identification number, taken from the dashboard and door frame, returned registered to Clarence Biddle, a Pennsylvania resident listed as missing since 2012. The entry flagged a historical file indicating the vehicle had never been recovered and was associated with a closed missing persons case out of Susquehanna County. The driver was placed under arrest on suspicion of vehicle theft and false identification. He was transported to the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office for further processing. During the initial 48 hours in custody, the man declined to answer questions, refused to sign intake forms, and declined to name next of kin. A standard biometric scan was eventually completed, revealing his true identity as Randall Farrow, a former Luzerne County resident with a minor criminal history and known associate of Reba Biddle. Farrow had no active warrants at the time of arrest. Upon confirming his identity, he invoked his right to legal counsel and refused to participate in further questioning. Meanwhile, the vehicle was taken to a state police forensic impound facility for examination. Though repainted in a muted gray, the truck's VIN confirmed it was the same silver 1999 Ford F-150 registered to Clarence Biddle at the time of his disappearance. The original license plates had been removed and replaced with a set trace to a non-operational trailer owned by a deceased relative of Farrow. Closer inspection of the vehicle's frame revealed partially abraded serial numbers on the chassis, an attempt.
Chad, do y'all think that the white guy that was in the truck has something to do with this? And the ex-wife?
Investigators believed to obscure ownership. The odometer showed mileage consistent with limited use over an 8-year period. A forensic sweep of the interior was ordered. Under the passenger seat, technicians recovered a brown leather wallet that appeared aged but intact. Inside, they found several personal items belonging to Clarence Biddle, a faded union membership card from IBEW Local 1249, a folded photograph of Clarence and Reba dated 2009, and a gasoline receipt from a station in Binghamton, New York. The timestamp on the receipt read October 13th, 2012, the day after Clarence's reported departure for his solo hunting trip. The discovery of that receipt placed the vehicle, and likely Clarence, near Binghamton the day after his last known sighting. This was the first confirmed physical link to Clarence Biddle since his disappearance.
Wow.
New York State Police contacted law enforcement authorities in Pennsylvania. The Susquehanna County District Attorney's Office and Pennsylvania State Police were briefed on the recovery of the vehicle and the identification of Randall Farrow as the driver. Given the nature of the original case and the new forensic findings, coordination between state jurisdictions began immediately. The Pennsylvania Attorney General's office authorized the reactivation of Clarence Biddle's missing persons file as part of a broader criminal investigation. The search yielded several items of interest, including a locked metal filing box, various personal records, and documents containing references to Clarence's presumed death. But one set of documents stood out: multiple handwritten drafts of notes similar in tone and phrasing to the letter mailed to Reba in November 2012, the one allegedly written by Clarence and postmarked from Buffalo, New York. One of the drafts contained nearly identical language, but was incomplete and bore markings consistent with Wilkes-Barre post office sorting stamps. These details would later become central to the handwriting and ink analysis. In addition, the search team found a labeled key marked shed. Investigators recognized the reference and contacted the current owners of the former Biddle residence in Susquehanna County. With permission, they returned to the property and entered the backyard shed, which had remained largely untouched since the sale in 2013.
Damn.
The search of Reba Biddle's Wilkes-Barre apartment, conducted in the first week of June 2020, yielded critical evidence that reframed the Clarence Biddle case entirely. Among the most significant items recovered was a locked metal filing box discovered inside a storage closet adjacent to the bedroom. The box contained a series of categorized folders, including financial documents, insurance correspondence, and a collection of personal letters. Several of the letters were addressed to Lisa, presumed to be Lisa Biddle, Clarence's younger sister. These letters had never been sent and appeared to have been written during the months following Clarence's disappearance. They referenced closure, difficult decisions, and moving forward, but made no mention of law enforcement or ongoing contact with Clarence. More notably, among the contents were multiple handwritten drafts of short notes, one of which was nearly identical in wording and structure to the letter received at the Biddle residence in November 2012. This draft contained the sentence, "I'm gone. I need peace. Don't look for me." The writing matched the phrasing of the original mailed note almost exactly, though the draft was unfinished and bore internal postal sorting marks inconsistent with the Buffalo postmark originally cited. One partial envelope was also found bearing a local Luzerne County postmark. These inconsistencies prompted immediate submission to forensic handwriting experts. In addition to the letters, investigators recovered an old brass key labeled simply, "Shed." This immediately prompted contact with the current owner of Reba and Clarence's former home in Susquehanna County. The owners, who had purchased the property in 2013, confirmed that the backyard shed had not been modified or accessed in any significant way since they moved in. With consent, law enforcement officers conducted a search of the structure. Inside the shed, officers identified an altered section of the back wall. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be a false panel, secured loosely with wood screws. Behind this panel, investigators found what they described as a storage void, a cavity large enough to conceal a person or object. The floor of the void showed discoloration consistent with aged biological material, and the plywood base bore an impression consistent with a rectangular tarp-wrapped shape. Chemical luminol tests indicated moderate levels of blood spatter along the rear wall. Evidence collection teams secured multiple biological samples from the site. A single hair strand recovered from the floor area was later confirmed through mitochondrial DNA analysis to belong to Clarence Biddle. The blood residue, although degraded, tested positive for human blood with partial markers consistent with the Biddle family profile. Following standard protocol, the search area was extended to include the perimeter of the backyard. Near the rear fence line, officers located a shallow burial site. Inside was a rusted metal box containing several of Clarence's personal items, his Pennsylvania hunting license, valid through 2013, a pair of worn work boots, and a broken wristwatch. These items had not been listed in the original missing persons inventory and had never been reported recovered by Reba. At this point, investigators concluded that Clarence Biddle had likely never left for the Poconos on October 12, 2012.
Damn.
Instead, the working theory shifted to suggest that he had been killed inside or near the family home early that morning and that the narrative of a voluntary disappearance, including the Buffalo letter, had been manufactured after the fact. Based on the totality of the evidence, arrest warrants were secured on June 4, 2020. Reba Biddle was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, destruction of evidence, and insurance fraud. Randall Farrow was charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, tampering with physical evidence, and obstruction of justice. Both were taken into custody without incident and arraigned before the Luzerne County Court of Common Pleas. Bail for Reba was denied due to concerns about flight risk and the severity of the charges. Farrow was held on a $150,000 bond. Neither defendant made public statements at the time of arrest. Neither entered an immediate plea. In January 2021, more than 8 years after the disappearance of Clarence Biddle, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania brought formal charges against Reba Biddle and Randall Farrow before the Luzerne County Court of Common Pleas. The trial was conducted jointly, with both defendants appearing in the same courtroom, seated separately and represented by individual legal counsel. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Rachel Morrow, structured its case around 4 primary elements: the forged letter mailed to the Biddle residence in November 2012, The forensic evidence recovered from the backyard shed, the discrepancies in the reported timeline of Clarence's disappearance, and the unauthorized possession of
Yeah, they're gonna
Clarence's
charge
vehicle
her.
by Randall Farrow. In her opening statement, ADA Morrow stated plainly, this was not a disappearance. This was a staged erasure.
Right.
A man's life was ended, and in its place, a narrative was created to serve financial and personal gain. She outlined the prosecution's theory that Reba had lured Clarence into the backyard shed early on the morning of October 12, 2012, under the pretense of helping him prepare for his hunting trip. There, the confrontation turned fatal. The prosecution did not claim to know the exact method of death, but argued that the physical evidence pointed to a violent event inside the shed. As for motive, the prosecution presented financial records showing that the Biddles had accumulated over $28,000 in unsecured debt by mid-2012. In addition, witnesses testified to an emerging relationship between Reba and Randall during that same period. One co-worker, identified as Denise Halpern, stated under oath that Reba had confided in her just weeks before Clarence vanished, describing herself as trapped and waiting for a way out. Halpern further testified that Reba had mentioned someone she was starting to see, though she did not name Farrow at the time.
That's crazy.
Key forensic testimony.
How your husband just disappeared out of nowhere? You dating already? Yeah, she killed him.
Testimony came from investigators involved in the shed search. Crime scene analyst Mark Callister described the blood spatter patterns as medium velocity impact consistent with blunt trauma. He also noted that luminol revealed cleanup attempts on multiple surfaces. DNA analysts confirmed that a single hair recovered from the site belonged to Clarence Biddle, and the blood samples shared markers consistent with his maternal lineage. The letter, initially believed to have been sent by Clarence from Buffalo, was introduced as a central piece of fabricated evidence.
Wow.
A handwriting expert testified that the 2012 letter showed strong similarities to drafts recovered from Reba's home. Ink analysis confirmed a match with pens Reba had previously...
So what she did was she stole mail from him and she copied how he write? Is that what I'm getting at, Carrie?
...ordered through her workplace. The jury was shown images of two nearly identical letters, one mailed, one unfinished, with only minor variations in syntax. Farrow declined to testify in his own defense and remained silent throughout most of the proceedings. His attorney argued that Randall had played no role in Clarence's disappearance and was unaware of the vehicle's origin when he began driving it. The defense characterized Farrow as a passive figure who had been pulled in long after the fact. Reba's defense maintained that there was no direct proof of homicide. They emphasized the absence of a body, a confirmed cause of death, or a murder weapon. Her attorney asserted that Clarence had left voluntarily and that Reba, after years of silence, had simply attempted to move on. As for the handwritten drafts, the defense claimed they were part of Reba's emotional processing and a way to find closure, not evidence of forgery.
So explain the letter, that fake letter that supposedly he wrote saying that he was disappearing. Like, get the fuck out of here.
But the jury was unmoved by the defense's framing. After 3 weeks of testimony and 6 hours of deliberation, the panel returned with unanimous verdicts. On March 12, 2021, Reba Biddle was found guilty on all charges: conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice.
Right, because you sit in... Yeah, because she sat there and she went to the bank and showed all types of fucking documents to get the money out the account. She used all that money to pay off some debt, and then she sold the house and shit. You feel me? They all guilty. Yeah, facts, my nigga.
Randall Farrow was found guilty of being an accessory to fraud and tampering with physical evidence. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month. Both defendants were remanded into custody without bond. Outside the courthouse, Lisa Biddle, Clarence's sister, made a brief statement. They told the world he walked away. Now the truth has walked back in.
Damn.
On April 14th.
Damn. She said they told the world he walked away. Now the truth walked back in. Damn. That must have hurt hearing that in court.
2021, sentencing was handed down in Luzerne County Court. Reba Biddle received 25 years in a Pennsylvania
That's
State
it?
Correctional Facility with no eligibility for parole for the first 17 years. Judge Celia Horton, delivering the sentence, cited the premeditated nature and moral coldness of Reba's actions, emphasizing the deliberate concealment of Clarence Biddle's presumed death and the calculated effort to profit from his absence. Randall Farrow was sentenced to 14 years for his role in the conspiracy.
That's it?
While the court acknowledged that Farrow had not been charged with direct involvement in Clarence's death, Judge Horton noted that his long-term participation in the cover-up, including his use of Clarence's vehicle and active obstruction of the investigation, demonstrated clear complicity in sustaining a fraudulent...
So why they give him only fucking 15 years? They should have gave him 25 and gave Shorty like 60 to 100.
narrative. Despite the weight of evidence, no murder charge was filed against either Reba Biddle or Randall Farrow. The absence of Clarence's body remained the critical limitation. Prosecutors explained during sentencing that without a confirmed cause of death or human remains, a homicide conviction would be legally unviable. Instead, the convictions rested on conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, evidence tampering, and obstruction, all upheld on the basis of circumstantial and forensic evidence presented at trial. In June 2021, Clarence Biddle was legally declared deceased by court order. The ruling, filed in Susquehanna County, allowed for final closure of his legal and financial affairs. A private memorial was held in Montrose, attended by family members, former co-workers, and local union representatives. Clarence's sister, Lisa Biddle, gave a brief eulogy. She stated, "They buried the truth for 8 years. But now he gets his name back." Her remarks were later quoted in regional press coverage, which treated the case as one of the most complex cold case convictions in recent Pennsylvania history. In partnership with IBEW Local 1249, a portion of the recovered insurance funds was redirected to establish a trade school scholarship fund in Clarence's name.
That's what's up.
The fund, targeted towards second career electricians, received its first round of applications in early 2022. Reba Biddle is currently incarcerated at the State Correctional Institution at Muncie, a facility for female offenders located in Lycoming County. She is ineligible for parole review until 2038.
Damn.
Randall Farrow is serving his sentence at SCI Bennett Township in Center County. Per court order, the two are prohibited from any form of direct or third-party communication for the duration of their incarceration. Clarence Biddle's remains have not been recovered. Multiple searches, both official and privately coordinated, have failed to identify a burial site or physical location tied definitively to his death. Law enforcement has not disclosed any ongoing search operations. As of 2024, his body remains unfound.
It's crazy.
The 1999 Ford F-150, the vehicle Clarence was last seen driving, remains in state custody. Repainted, weathered by time,
know where that body
and stripped of plates, it sits in a secured evidence lot in Scranton.
That'd be fucking video.
Investigators and prosecutors agree that without the recovery of that vehicle and the forensic discoveries it contained, the case might never have moved forward. In the absence of a body, the trip became the central artifact in a case built not on confession, but on reconstruction.
That was a W fucking video, chat.